Okay. Hey, thank you for that. Like I don't know, I can also do the recording. Okay. So here we are given the scope as singleton and the prototype, right? So can anyone like to add what is the singleton scope and what is prototype scope? You can try to give that answer, even though it is wrong. We are in a learning process. So it is not, you should be able to give 100% correct answer, but yes, you should be able to answer some of them. Yeah. So someone is messaging like a singleton is created whenever the Spring container is getting loaded, whereas a prototype object is created whenever we require it. Okay. And the another difference between singleton and prototype is singleton says, there would be only single object created for that particular bean ID. It does not say it will create a single object for the employee class. It will not say that. What it will say, singleton scope of Spring says it will create a single object for that particular bean ID. So here is the bean ID is the reference. So if you create two bean IDs for the same class, it will create two employee objects. Whereas singleton of the JVM level says it will create only single object of this particular class. But here we are not discussing about class. Here what we are discussing? We are discussing about a bean ID. Okay, so that is singleton. So if you call the same bean ID again and again, like for example, if you're calling EMP1, EMP1 again and again, it will return the same reference of the EMP1. That is what we have learned. Okay, then we have seen prototype scope. The prototype object is created whenever we require it, and every time you call the bean ID, a same bean ID again and again, it will always and always create a new object. That is also we have seen. Okay, now what I'm going to do is we are going to create, see now for example in actual, whenever you work with any software or object oriented programming, do you think there is a single object or there is a has a relationship, means employee has an address, something like this, is that right? One object is having reference to another object. That is how we do that. That is composition, right? So what I'm going to do is going to create an address class, and we'll configure that address class, and then we will see how to put the address class into the employee class, or how to inject an address bean into a employee Spring Bean. Okay, we'll see that. So first we'll create a class address, and we'll bean of employee. Hey, you are dependent on this, or you need this particular bean. I'm going to provide you that. Okay, but till now, whenever we have created all these things, all this configuration, so who is creating these objects for us? Employee 1, employee 2, employee 5, employee 6, employee 7. Who is calling the constructor? I as a Java developer is calling it, or Spring container is calling the constructor, or the property setting? Who is doing that?
Spring container.
Spring
The
container.
Spring container is doing all that configuration thing. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll create a class called as address, and then we'll write the configuration of that class. Okay, I will take address as a string ID. Why? Because I want the address to be A1, A2. Okay, I don't want it to be 1, 2. I want the number series to be, I want the series to be A1, A2, A3, something like this. Okay, so that's why I've written like this, A1. Okay, and then we'll write private string city, and then I'll write private string country. Okay, I'll have a default constructor saying public sysout address. Okay, with ID. So it will print address object created with ID this. Okay. And then I want to assign the value, right? A1, A2, A3, A4, whenever the new objects are getting generated. So how I can assign that? Like if I create two objects, I want the ID to be 1 and 2. If I create three objects, I want the ID to be 1, 2, and 3. How we can do that? So we can create a static int count. Okay. And here I will write ID equals to A plus 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 count. Okay. So this will say A and the counter value will always be increment. So if the initially the counter value is 0, so for the first time when we say plus plus count, it will become A1. And then whenever the another object is getting created, the counter value is 1. So plus plus 1 will give A2. Okay, then the value of counter is 2 now. Whenever we create another object, it will be plus plus 2. That means it will be 3. So it will say ID equals to A3. Okay. So here I don't want to set the ID like this. I want to use this particular logic. Okay, so how I can do a call? We have seen that. How we can do that? We can just give a this constructor call, and then I will write over here as the sound parameterized address object with ID plus. Okay. Then we can have our getters and setters. Okay. And then I'll write a toString source toString. I'll print the ID, city, country over. Okay, now this classes, right? What we call this classes as a POJO class. You are aware about this POJO classes? So these are plain old Java objects. Means this class will be a simple Java class which will have a public default constructor. For all the instance variable, it will have a getters and setters, nothing else. Like for example, we can see this class is not extending any HTTP servlet. This class is not having @entity for Hibernate and @ID. This is a simple Java class. So that's why we call it as a plain old Java object. Okay, that are POJOs. Okay. Fine. So we have constructed the address class. Now we'll go to the text, and what we will do is we'll create an address bean for this particular city and country. So first we will create an address by using a default constructor. Okay. And then we'll set the city and country by using property. Okay. So we'll write like this: angular bracket bean ID equals to address bean, class equals to fully qualified name of the class. Okay. And then, so this will invoke which constructor, guys? If I write this much,
default.
correct. So now if I want to set the city and country, how I can do that after default constructor?
Properties.
Perfect. So I will write property name equals to, what is the name of my property? City.
City.
I will give value as Mumbai. Okay, and what is the next property? Country, and I'll say value as India. Okay. We can write context dot get bean, and I will write what is the ID of this?
Address 1.
Address 1. Perfect. We'll write over here, and then I'll say address dot class. Okay, and then I'll just print this out. Address, nothing else. I'm doing right now. I'll run this application, and the end you will see the address. See this. Okay, so this is what we have seen: address, ID, city, and country. Now, as I mentioned, right, in the actual Java, programming, whatever you will do, right, it will not always be a single class. There would be a has a relationship composition in a class, right? Employee is having a address reference. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go to the employee class and we will write that. We'll write private address, private address. Okay, and I'll write a constructor, parameterized constructor. Okay, which will have name, age, designation, salary, address, everything I will write. Okay, then we'll have a getters and setters for address. Source, generate getters and setters for address. Okay, and in the end, in the toString, right, we don't print the address information, we are printing only the employee information. What I'll do, I'll remove this and I will go for new toString. Okay, and I will ask to print the address information also. Okay, so it will print the address reference information also. Okay, so simple changes. So what we have done, we have saying employee has a address. Okay, we are saying employee has a address. So what for that, what I have done, I have created a parameterized constructor. Okay, I will say parameterized constructor created with ID this, and instead of this, I will call it this call. Why? Because I want to invoke the ID generation logic which is present in the default constructor. Okay, and then we have added get address and set address, and I override the toString method again to print the address information. Okay, so now what is happening is, we are having a address also. Now I'm trying to create an object employee bean by using this constructor. Okay, so I need to pass name, age, designation, salary, and the address. Okay, so now what is a designation? It is or an age, whether it is a primitive type or a reference type. If we are saying int age, so is this a reference type or a primitive type?
Primitive.
It is a primitive type. But when I say address, what is an address? It's a primitive type or a reference? It is a reference type. So now, till now, whatever we have seen our examples, right? They were all about primitive type values. Now let us create another employee which is having a reference to an address which is a reference type. Okay. So I'll get a bean ID 8. Okay. And for constructor, I will write constructor hyphen arg name equals to this, value equals to this. So how many constructor I am having over here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay. Now this will pick up name, age, designation, salary, okay, address. Okay. Now name. So we're giving name as Ram, age is 25, designation as SSC, and the salary is 50,000. Now, what is reference? Reference, can I give a value or it has to be a reference over here? Because we can give a primitive type value directly, but for reference type, we have to give, you are referencing to another bean called as this address one bean. Okay. So here what I'm saying is, I'm saying for this address, you are referring to another bean that is called as an address one bean. Okay. So that's why here we have to write a reference. Okay. Now, what will Spring do at runtime? We'll just draw that using a MS Paint. Okay, only for this address and this employee 8. Okay. So right hand side is my heap memory. Okay. I'll draw a box that is a Spring container. Now, when Spring container looks as this particular thing, right? What it will do? Address one bean. What it will do? It will create an object of an address. Okay, mark it as address one, and in that it will set the ID as A1, city as Mumbai, country as India. Okay, so here it will say A1. Here it will say Mumbai. Here it will say India. Okay, this is how it will create an address one bean. Now coming to employee 8 bean. So when it is trying, so who will write this code? You know, of something like this. Who is writing this code for us? Address one equals to new address. Are we writing this code, guys? This code who is writing for us?
Spring container.
The Spring container is going to write all this code. We as a Java developer don't write the code of object creation. Okay, it is done by the Spring container. Okay, and then so this is what it will create, this code, and the object would be created something like this. Okay, now what is happening over here is, when it is trying to create an employee object, what it will do, it will write employee emp8 equals to new employee. Okay, now for creating this object, what it will do, because since it is a constructor argument, we have to say it is Ram, age is 25, designation is senior software engineer, salary is 50,000, and now this address, it will say address one. This is how we create, right? The reference, we pass the reference from the Java code, right? So now what will happen at runtime, whenever the text.xml would be loaded by the Spring container, it will create like this. Okay, this is the address bean and this is the employee bean, and at runtime it will give this address one bean, Spring bean, to this employee 8. So if you look at this diagram, so how the object creation would be there, there will be an employee emp8 getting created. ID is something it will show me. Age is 25. That is senior software engineer. value salary is 50,000, and this address one, right? What it would be an address one? It is a reference to this particular bean. Can you see this? Now at runtime, this address one, right? This address variable, this address variable, right? It would be set to this particular address one. So this is EMP8 bean, okay, which is our bean, EMP8 bean. So this is how the EMP8 bean would be created at runtime. Okay. So first it will create the address object, and then it will see, okay, EMP8 requires address one. Okay. So EMP8 is what? It requires an address bean. So that's why it will create the function like this. Okay, got it, guys? So how the object creation would be done? So Spring at runtime will create this address one bean. It will create the AMP8 bean. At runtime, it will set the employee bean address to this address object or the address Spring bean. Understood, guys? How the object creation happens, and this is the code it will write in the background. This is the object creation code the Spring is going to write for us. So we as a Java developer, we don't write this code. Who is going to write this code for us? It is going to be done by the Spring container. Okay, so any questions, any doubt in this, you can definitely ask me, guys. So before I introduce first feature of Spring framework, okay, which is based on what we learned right now between address one and the EMP8 bean. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Sir, you are muted.
Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. If from when I was muted, I showed this diagram, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what I was saying is, then I showed you this. So if we write address one, address equals to new address at this information. So I did ask, like, who is writing this code for us? It is we as a Java developer is writing, or Spring container is writing this code for us?
Spring container.
The Spring container is writing this code for us. Okay. Now here I'm saying, or we can learn from here, this employee 8 requires this address bean. Okay. So what we are saying, employee 8 Spring bean requires, or it is dependent on this address one bean. Okay. So that's what I'm saying over here. Like we are saying, Spring in EMP8, this bean is dependent on address one Spring bean. Okay. Spring bean EMP8 is dependent on address one Spring bean. Okay. So what is this process called as? This process is called as dependency injection. Means injecting the dependent bean. So what is a dependent bean over here? Address one Spring Bean EMP8 says I am dependent on address 1 bean. So injection of the dependent bean, that is the address 1, into the employee object is called as dependency injection. Okay, so I'll write it, don't worry. So dependency injection is a process wherein object defined, it is dependent on another object. Clear? So here, what is a dependency injection? A dependency injection is a process wherein wherein an object defined, it is dependent on another object. So here in our case, we are saying Spring Bean EMP8 is dependent on address 1 Spring Bean. Okay, but what happens is at runtime, Spring container will inject dependent bean, that is address 1 bean into EMP8 Spring Bean. Why it happens at runtime? Because why we call, at runtime Spring container will inject the dependent beans, that is the address 1 bean, into the EMP8 Spring Bean. Why? Because all this codes is written by whom? Is written by Spring container at runtime. So that's why it says at runtime Spring container will inject the dependent beans, means it will inject the dependent address 1 bean into this employee 8 Spring Bean. Okay, so what is a dependency injection? Dependency injection is a process wherein an object says it is dependent on another object, because employee 8 requires this address 1 bean, right? So that's why we are saying it is dependent on address 1 object. Okay, so that's why dependency injection is a process wherein object define its dependent or another bean. So how we are defining it? We are defining inside a bean tag. Okay, and where we are specifying it? In the constructor arguments. In the constructor arguments, we are specifying address is dependent. This EMP8 is dependent on an address which is referred by this address 1 bean. Okay, so we are defining it is a dependent on another bean in this constructor arguments. Okay, now in the XML we are just defining it, but who is actually creating the employee object? Who is creating the address object? Who is writing all this code? The entire code is written by the Spring framework at runtime. At runtime, Spring container will inject the dependent beans into the EMP8 Spring Bean. So who is writing the code and everything? It is done by the Spring framework. Okay, now ideally, who should write this code? Like for example, creating the address object, employee 8 object. Who should write this code? Ideally, till now, who was writing the code of creating objects? You as a Java developer, right? Ideally, who writes the code is ideally Java developer writes this code. But here, who is writing this code?
Spring container.
But Spring container, here Spring container writes the code of object creation and managing it. So here the Spring container is writing the code of object creation and managing it. Okay, which is inverse. What does inverse means in English? Inverse is opposite. Okay, so because instead of ideally who writes the Java code of object creation? Ideally Java developer should write the code, but here who is writing the code? Who is writing the code? The code is written by the Spring container. So that means the control of writing code is inverse, means the control of writing code is inverse, means the code is, instead of developer writing the code, it is inverse, means it is written by the Spring container. Hence, this feature is also known as, it is also called as inversion of control. What is inversion of control? Or it is a shorthand called as IOC. Okay, So instead of, or we'll write the control of writing Java code is inversed. What is inverse? Instead of Java developer creating, or instead of Java developer writing Java code for creation of objects, Spring Container has taken control of creation of objects at runtime. Okay, so what we are saying, the control of writing Java code is inverse, means instead of Java developer writing a Java code for creation of objects, Spring Container has taken the control of creation of objects at runtime, because the object creation happens at runtime by the Spring Container. Hence, since it is inverse, the control is inverse, it is also called as inversion of control. That is an IOC. So for the first day, right, I have told, right, it is also called as a Spring Container, or it is also called as an IOC container. Now, what is an IOC? It is an inversion of control. So instead of Java developer writing the Java code of creating the objects and managing it, who is doing it? It is done by the Spring Container. Hence, the control of writing the code of Java code is inverse, means instead of Java developer writing the code, who is writing the code? It is written by the Spring Container. Hence, it is also called as inversion of control. Clear, everyone? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is the one of the most important, the entire Spring framework, right, relies on this dependency injection principle. Means injecting the dependent object at runtime is called as the dependency injection. Okay. See here, you will, so dependency injection is a process wherein object define that it is dependent on another object. But at runtime, Spring will inject that dependent object, that is the address one being into this. I'll write at runtime, Spring Container will create and then inject that dependent beans. Means it will first create the address one bean and it will inject that address one bean into the employee 8 Spring bean. Like if you look at this diagram, it should be more clear. Okay, so first we created the address object and then that address object was injected into the employee object. So this process is called as the dependency injection. Okay, so I will show you the dependency injection from the Spring documentation. So this, let it load. I'll show you. Okay, dependency is a process. Can you see the dependency injection is a process whereby the object define that dependency, that is the other objects they will work on. How we can specify is, I have shown is via a constructor argument. You can also set it via a property. Okay, you can see constructor arguments, factory method I will show you, or properties. Okay, this is what it will say. Like we can say employee 8 bean is dependent on address bean. Here we are specified via constructor. We can also specify via a property. Okay, or via factory method. I'll tell you in next 15 minutes what is a factory method. But then you can see the container then inject those dependency when it creates a bean. This process is fundamentally the inverse, hence the name inversion of control, where the bean itself controlling the instantiation or the location of its bean. That means the bean directly says, okay, here the employee 8 bean will say, I will look out for this address one bean and I will inject that dependent bean. So you have to remember all these things because it's a very, very famous interviewer question. What is a dependency injection? So you should say dependency injection is a process wherein one object defines that it is dependent on another object through constructor arguments or via a properties or via a factory method. And at runtime, Spring Container will create and inject those dependent beans. Okay. Now, what is happening? this entire creation of the bean and injecting the dependent beans happens at runtime. Hence, it is called like it happens at runtime. And instead of Java developer writing the Java code, who's writing this code? Spring controller has taken the control of creation of objects at runtime. Hence, it is also called as an inversion of control. So dependency injection is achieved through inversion of control. Why? Because at run, so dependency injection, what we do, we just say, okay, this bean is dependent on another bean. But at runtime, Spring container, it will create those beans and it will inject the dependent beans also. You can see from this picture attached. So always remember this picture, and whatever statements I have written, kindly remember that statement, because whenever whatever I teach, right, and whatever I have learned, that everything is from the Spring framework documentation. Okay, this is not what I have created, right? I am not a Spring developer, like I didn't created a Spring framework. So whatever I teach you guys, they are from the Spring documentation. I don't refer anything else. Like sometimes I refer some document, some websites like Java Point, Tutorials Point, Dinesh on Java, XYZ things. So because, and a good site to learn Spring is also Baildung. I'll give that site address. I think you must have referred to that, right? Baildung. This one. Baildung. This is a good website for learning Spring also, right? So if you have any doubts and anything, you can definitely ask me. But if I'm not available, you can refer to this Baildung website. Okay. So you understood what is dependency injection, guys? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you should be able to answer this. Okay. Whenever the interviewer asks you what is dependency injection, so you have to tell it. So he will then try to confuse you. Then what is inversion of control? So you have to just say that dependency injection, you know, uh, it has to inject the dependent beans. Okay, one bean is dependent on another bean, and at runtime, Spring container will create that bean and it will inject that dependent bean. Okay, so at runtime, whenever ideally the code should be written by whom? By the Java developer. But who is writing the code for us? The Spring developer is writing that code for us, and it is in Spring developer is writing the code for us. Hence, it is an inverse. So that's why we called as it as inversion of control. Okay, guys. Any doubt? Any questions? You can definitely ask me. So you can refer this documentation also, because I don't, teach apart from the documentation. Okay. So I'll consider silence as yes, and I will proceed ahead. Okay. Okay, now we'll see what is the advantage. So I have shown you, wow, that's a wow feature dependency injection. Okay, and you have to learn that also, because Spring at runtime it will inject that bean. So you have to be very particular. Like that's why I say whenever you want to learn anything, any framework, you have to understand how Spring container behaves. So you should assume that you are a Spring container and you are following certain steps. Okay, so that is very, very important. Then only the Spring framework would be very simple. And why I teach you guys, basically because I have seen people having 5 years, 6 years of experience, they don't understand Spring framework. Okay, they understand the theory part of it. Okay, oh, bean should be created like this. Okay, I'll create it. But actually, what is inversion of control? What is happening at runtime? So they don't know that. Okay, so that's why I would like to teach all the freshers who would be coming into industry, so you are well prepared what is a Spring framework all about. Okay, and once we finish Spring framework, I'll take up the Spring Boot part of it. Okay, now we'll see what is the advantage of using Spring framework. Okay, what is the advantage of the dependency injection? Now assume that you know this is an address one bean, and this address of this employee is in India. Now assume that this employee got shifted to America or US country. He got shifted to US. Now what will happen here? If we would have written right in a Java code, if you have written this, what would have happened? We have to go and change the Java code saying that, hey, now this employee, address has changed. So what we have to do is we have to create another address 2, address 2, and we have to write, hey, this is a New York City, and the country is United States of America. Okay, and then what we have to do for the same employee object, we need to write like this. Instead of this address 1, now it is address 2. Correct, guys? These are the lines of code we have to change, right? If the address changes. Any doubt on this, guys?
No, sir.
No,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, it's clear, right? So now what is the problem? You are changing a source code. Correct? Now see what we will see. What is the advantage of using the configuration in an XML? What I will do, I will come over here. Okay, I will say, okay, your address has changed. What is the city? It is New York. Which country? USA. What is this address? Instead of this address 1, now I will point to address 2. And now if we run this program, you will see in the output automatically the, oh, what is happening? I give the address 2 bean. Okay, my bad. So this we have printed about address 1, right? I didn't print about EMP8. I will show that. Okay, I need to print that EMP8 thing. That's my mistake. I should show employee object. Okay, so now if I run this object, if I run this program, right, you will see automatically the address would be pointing to A2 and New York and USA. Now if that employee comes back to India, I will just write address reference 1. So you will see automatically it would be pointing to Mumbai and India. So now what is the advantage? Loose coupling. Your code employer is not tightly coupled to Mumbai address, or it is not tightly coupled to USA address. You can just change the configuration file, and you don't have to make any change in the source code file of employee. Correct? Now, if you use a normal Java programming, what steps we need to write? We have to write all these lines of code. See this. We have to edit the source code. You have to change the source code, right? Code, if you write something like this, your code would be hard coded. Employee would be hard coded to America address, the New York City address. But when you use Spring, what is the advantage? That is a loose coupling. You can go to the configuration file and you can say, hey, now what you have to do is you have to change the bean address. Now you're coming to India. Now again the employee again goes to America. What we need to do, instead of address 1, I'll see address 2. So I don't have to change any source code, right? Automatically, at runtime address 2 will be injected and the employee object will be pointing to this particular address. Understood, guys? What is the advantage of dependency injection? Dependency injection has the advantage, that is loose coupling. That means at runtime you can object and you don't have to change the source code. You have to just change the configuration file and you get the advantage of using what? Dependency injection. So that is a powerful feature of dependency injection. Means at runtime, what you can do is you can just make the configuration change and you don't have to edit the Java source code. That is the power of using dependency injection. Okay, at runtime, Spring will inject the dependent object. Clear? So this is about the dependency injection, the most powerful feature of Spring framework. Because at runtime, like for example, if we have a class, class ABC or a model class, employee model, login module class, login bean class, and in that login bean, I want a data source. Okay, so login bean class is dependent on a data source. Okay, so I will write a configuration. Okay, something like this. I'm saying, login bean is there and it is dependent on what? Data source. Why? Because in login bean, we have to put the logic, select, we have to fire a select statement saying that select, count of one from login table where username equals to this and password equals to this, because we have to check, right? Whenever the user logins into system, whether the user ID and password are same or not. Correct? So that check we need to do. So that is why login bin, we have to say something like this. I'll write like this: class login bin. Okay. And inside login bin, I will write data source. Okay. Now what we call login bin is dependent on a data source. Okay. Or login bin has a data source, and we can say login bin is dependent on a data source to connect to the database. Now, if I create a bean configuration, what I will write: ID equals to login bean and class equals to com.met.model.login.
Single dot after MET.
Oh yeah, that is okay, fine. Now what I will do, I'll create a data source bin. I will say bean ID equals to MySQL data source. Okay, and I'll write class equals to driver manager data source. Okay, so this is one class which is provided by Spring only. Fine. And then you will say angular bracket bean. Okay. And here you will write property name equals to what all properties a data source requires. It requires a driver class. So you will write value equals to what is the driver class? I'll write Oracle driver. Okay. So you have to write the fully qualified name of the Oracle driver. I will write property name equals to URL. Okay. Value equals to, okay, whatever value is there, you will write the Oracle URL value. I think I have that handy. I'll just show that. It is something like this, and then you will write something like, fine. So you'll write property name equals to this, property name equals to username. Okay, and whatever your user ID and password is there. Now your login win is dependent on what? It is dependent on a data source. So how you will say property name equals to data source, and you will say reference equals to what you will refer it to? MySQL data source. Right, public void get data source, and you will also have public void set data source. Okay, you will have this in this particular class. Okay, now you're specifying login bin equals to login bin, property name equals to data source, reference equals to MySQL data source. Now a login bin will get a reference to data source, and you can write a method something like this: public void save employee. Okay, and then once you get a reference to data source, what you can do, you can just say data source dot get connection. You get a connection to the database, and you can start with your database coding, right? Prepare statement and everything, you can do it. But now what is the advantage of dependency injection? What is the loose coupling all about? So currently your login bin is requiring a data source, and that database source is nothing but MySQL data source. Okay. But what if the tomorrow your project manager says, hey, we don't want to use MySQL. What we want to use? We want to use Oracle data source. So what change you need to do? You have to just change this configuration data. What you can do is you just add a new bean called as Oracle data source, put all the okay, here it would be my bad, it is the
MySQL.
MySQL driver, and here it should have the MySQL connection properties. I have that. I don't have that. So we'll write MySQL connection. Okay. Some value it would be localhost colon blah 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 blah. Now here what we'll do, we'll create a bean ID equals to Oracle data source and configure that. Now what you have to do, you don't have to make any source code change. What you will do, you will just configure this. Correct? So that is loose coupling. Like at you don't have to make any change in the source code. Okay, your code is loosely coupled to your database. Okay, because any data source you say will just change the configuration object, and in the XML I will say, okay, login bin you have to refer to MySQL data source. Oh, login bin now you have to refer to Oracle data source. So you have to just change that. Okay. So that is the advantage, of using dependency injection. What is the advantage? Loose coupling. You get the powerful feature of loose coupling. You just change the configuration file, XML content, and you don't have to change the source code and your objects. As you say, okay, I am dependent on Oracle data source, or I am dependent on MySQL data source, you will get that advantage. Okay, cleared out? Clear, guys? What is loose coupling? What is the advantage of using dependency injection? Dependency injection means at runtime the dependent bean is injected. That means at runtime, Spring Container has created the Oracle data source, and it will inject that Oracle data source into your login bean. Okay, so your code is not tightly coupled to anything. Clear, guys?
Sir, can you explain one time more loosely coupled that?
Okay, so what is loosely coupling for the Oracle data source?
No, this concept loosely coupled. Like
So
can
loosely.
we change?
So you know what is loose coupling?
No.
Okay, so loose, like normally what we do is we is dependent on Oracle database. Like directly we write, right, driver manager dot get connection, and what we write directly, you write Oracle, Oracle connection, right? Like whenever you create your normal JDBC code, what you do?
Directly write down the address.
Correct. You write driver manager dot get connection, and you write the URL of Oracle. Now what that is happening? Your code is tightly coupled to Oracle. Okay. Now if tomorrow you have to move your code right to MySQL, what you need to do? You have to go to each and every class and say, oh, wherever you have written driver manager dot get connection, you have to change that. That means what? Your code is tightly coupled to Oracle data source. Okay. Yeah. Correct.
Yes.
Now what we are telling in loosely coupling is you don't have to change the source code. You don't have to change the Java code. Why? Because we are configuring that in a XML file. Correct? So yes. What we are doing with the help of dependency injection, we are just configuring this. Say this one. So we are telling the Spring, this login bean is dependent on what? It is dependent on a Oracle data source. Okay. So what Spring will do at runtime, it will create the data source object. Okay. So what it will do is, it will first create the, like this. It will create a Oracle data source bean. Okay. It will create Oracle data source. And then what it will do, it will then create a login bean. Okay. And in that login bean, what it will do, it will refer to this Oracle data source. Now this login bean will have all the connection to the Oracle database. Now what you do, you say, okay, this Oracle is a licensed product. We don't want to use Oracle. What we want to use is a MySQL. Now what Spring will do, at runtime, it will create a, what it will create a?
MySQL bean.
MySQL data source. And what it will do, it will just remove this. Okay. And then what it will do, now I will point to this MySQL data source. Understood? Now it will have a reference to MySQL data source. Isn't this a loose coupling? Means you are not writing any code for connection, like inside your code, you're not writing Oracle driver, Oracle connection. What you're doing, you're creating two separate beans for it. One bean would be having a MySQL data source, another bean will having a Oracle data source, and you will just tell over here, okay, refer to this data source. So that is a loose coupling. Okay, understood now? What is hard coupling?
Yes, sir.
And what is loose coupling? So here at runtime, you are just making the configuration changes. By just making the configuration change in your XML, you are getting the advantage of moving from one database to another database. Or else, what is hard coding? We say that class is dependent on Oracle, and if you want to move to MySQL, you have to make changes in the entire classes. So here, for just changing the MySQL data source, do I need to write any source code changes? No, I have to just configure the XML file. Since I'm configuring the XML file, I don't have to make any change in the Java code. So if there is no change in the Java code, what is the advantage? Your code will not go for testing. Okay, because you have not made any source code changes. Okay, but apart from the testing, the main feature you have to understand is loose coupling. That is very, very important feature of dependency injection. Why? Because at runtime the beans are decided. Okay, I need to inject the Oracle data source or a MySQL data source. In hard coupling, what we write, in the code only, driver manager dot get connection Oracle driver or MySQL. So that is hard coupling. Okay. Now loose coupling says if tomorrow there is another data source coming into picture like a DB2 or MS SQL, what you need to do, you have to just configure that bean and you have to say to the login bean, now refer to this particular MySQL, MS SQL data source. So you don't have to make any source code change. Okay, but if your code is hardly coupled, if a class is tightly coupled to Oracle, then you have to go into all the classes wherever you have written driver manager dot get connection. Clear, guys?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. But in JDBC also we are making the config.properties file and we can change their the required database whenever required. There is also loose coupling, right?
Yeah, that is also a loose coupling. But that code, you are like you're just moving the properties file outside. Correct. That is only a properties file, right? Like you are picking up the driver class from a properties file. What is the name of the driver class? You are putting it in the properties file. Okay, that is a way of making a class loosely coupled. Yes, I can say that. But in Spring, you have to just configure that in an XML file, and you get that advantage.
It means both are the same.
Both are same. Yes, both are same. But here, what is happening? There, we write the code. Driver manager dot get connection, everything. Here we don't have to write that. I'll show whenever I cover the data part of it. You will see the exact difference. What I'm trying to say. But here we are just saying loosely coupling is like, for example, here if you take about address, right? What is happening? We don't have to create the address object. Like for example, if you look at this address object example, so right now for a database, right, as you mentioned, you can put in a properties file. But how you will solve this problem? How we will solve it? Like you have got a new address, so you have to manually create that address object, right? Like for example, currently in your Java code, you have written address 1, but now you have to move to a new address. So what will happen? You have to create a new address into that particular area, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is the advantage. So in the database is the best example because we are going to frequently use that in data source only. Like how the loosely coupling happens in the database only. But if you consider this example in your Java code, you have to write this entire code, address to equals to new address, and then refer this address to into the employee constructor series. So this is what it is, tightly coupled. So you can say this employee is tightly coupled to address one. Now, if you want to create a new address, you have to write all this code. So what Spring says, if you use my loose coupling feature, what you need to do is you have to just configure this, create an address and just refer that address to over here, and your job is done. Okay, fine. So I'll just break for we'll just give me a minute. I'll drink water, and till that time, if you have any questions, you can ask me. So I hope you understood it, right, guys? What is loose coupling and everything? Okay, let us proceed. So now you understood the concept of dependency injection, or we also call it as an inversion of control. Okay. Now we have learnt about singleton scope, right? And when we call the singleton scope, what it is for a particular bean ID. It is not on a class level singleton. Okay, it is just for that particular bean ID. It is singleton. Now, what if I want to create a singleton not on the bean level or on the bean ID level? What I want the singleton to be on the JVM level or on the class level. That means for this class, I want one and only one object to be created. You understood the use case, guys? What I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Understood the use case? That I want only one object for the entire JVM level. I don't want the object to be created. I want a singleton for not for the bean level. What I want is I want singleton for the JVM level. Correct? So now if you want to create a singleton class, you know what you do. How you ensure that only one object should be created from this particular class? How you can do that? Would anyone like to answer? Clear? Can anyone like to try how we can create a singleton object for JVM level, not on the bean level ID? I want it on the JVM level singleton. How we can do that, guys? Any idea? So do you know you have to like have you created a singleton level class, like how to say like okay only one object should be created of this particular class? Okay, no problem. Okay, so someone did mention that you have to create a private constructor. Okay, so after the address example, what I want to show is I want to create a stage class. Okay, so what's a stage basically? STAGE. What a stage? So it's a place, like for example, if you have some annual function in your college, participants perform where the participants perform on a stage. Okay, now for example, in your college, right, if 100 participants or 10 participants are going to perform some dance or singing or everything, they have to come on a stage and they have to perform it, right? Now, like for example, if there are 10 participants, how many stage you require? Like for example, whenever there is an annual function in your college, how many stages there? Do you have only single stage to perform, right? You require only a single stage to perform, right? Like for example, if there are 10 participants and you require 10 stages, then you cannot conduct the annual function. So what is the requirement? Like all the participants should come and perform on a single stage so that everyone can see that particular stage and look at what is participant performing. So what is your requirement? Your requirement is you should create a single stage where a participant would come and perform. Okay, so what I will do is I'll create a stage class. Okay, and in that I will write as someone mentioned, it has to be a private constructor, right? So I'll write now what I'll do, I'll go to the test.configuration file and I will write the configuration for this stage class. I'll write bean id equals to stage 1, class equals to copy qualifier name. Okay, and then I will write stage 2. Okay, now what do you think? So what we have done, as someone helped me out by saying that if you want to create a single object in your class, right? If you want to guarantee that for the entire JVM, there would be a single object of the stage class, you have to mark this constructor as private. So what I've done, I have created two stage beans, stage bean ID stage 1 and stage 2. Now let us see what is the output. So if you look at this, it will just print the stage over here. What is the scope of this stage 1 and stage 2 bin? Can anyone try to answer? What is the scope of stage 1 and stage? It is singleton.
Singleton.
So what will
Singleton.
happen? Yeah, correct. So what will happen whenever the constructor, the Spring container is trying to read this XML file, it will find how many singleton classes are there, and what it will do, it will try to create an object. Okay, so what we need to do, we have to go on the top, and can you see stage private constructor invoked? Stage private constructor is invoked. So what is happening? Even though in your stage class there is a private constructor created, what is happening? Spring is calling that private constructor also. Why? Because Spring, Spring framework and Hibernate framework, right? They use reflections a lot. Means at runtime they can be able to access the objects information. So what is happening over here is the Spring framework uses reflection at runtime, and it can call your private constructor. Okay, so it is calling your private constructor directly. Now what is the problem? It has invoked the constructor 2 times. So now what is the problem? Even though you are making the constructor private, Spring is very smart. He can call your private constructor by using reflection. But what we want, do you want two objects of stage to be created, or what is our requirement? Only one object of the stage should be created. So now what next we should do? Any other idea what you did for achieving this?
Make a condition.
Okay, that is called as a factory method, correct? Someone was asking me, sir, what is how to write a factory method? If you remember, correct? You had asked me, right?
No, sir.
Write a condition if the stage object is already created or not. You have to write that
Yes.
conditions, correct, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we'll go to the stage class, and here I will write something like this: private static stage equals to null, and then here I will write public stage get stage, and here I will write that code. If stage is equals to null, if it is equals to null, I will write stage equals to new stage. And then I will say return stage. Okay. So I will write public static stage get stage. So now what I will tell to Spring is, hey Spring, please. So if you write this statement, what it will do? It will try to create an object via a constructor. Now we have to tell to Spring, hey Spring, don't call my constructor. What you do is you call my factory method. So here I will say, don't call my constructor. Instead of that, what you do, how you create the object? By calling a factory method. Okay. So now if you look at this runtime, right, you will see only one stage private constructor is invoked. Why? Because Spring is not directly invoking your constructor. What it is doing? It is creating an object via a factory method. So what it will do, it will go to the stage get stage class. It will first check, okay, if stage variable is null or not. If it is not null, it will create a new object. So now what is happening is, for the first time, whenever the request goes to the get stage, what is the value of stage? What is the first time value of stage, guys? It is
Null.
correct. So what it will do, it will say, okay, now what I'll do, stage equals to new stage. So now what will happen? This stage will be pointing to a stage object in runtime. Okay. Now whenever we say again get stage, what will happen? Now the stage is null. No, it is not null. It will pointing to a stage object. So what it will do, it will return the stage object directly. You know this, right? Factory method, right?
Sir, can you revise that factory method?
Okay. So here what I'm doing over here is, I don't want, the object should Spring container should directly call my constructor. Why? Because even though it is marked as private, it can call my private constructor, because Spring is creating, or Spring uses reflections at runtime to access the private constructor. Now, what is the solution is, we have given a factory method. Okay, this is a design pattern, factory method design pattern. Okay, so here what is happening is, we will first, like what is happening over here is, from the stack, okay, it will be here only in the Spring container. There is a stage variable in the stack. Okay, stage variable. Initially, what is the value of stage? It is pointing to nothing. Pointing to nothing means it is referring to null. Okay, stage is referring to something called as null initially. Okay, that is the execution of your program. Now, when the first time the user calls get stage, what will happen? What is the value of stage? The reference is null. So what it says, stage equals to new stage. So what it will do is, it will create an object of stage, okay, over here, and instead of pointing to this, now what it will be pointing to? It will be pointing to this particular object. Okay, clear? Then it will return the stage object. Then what I'm saying, again I'm saying bean id equals to stage to class equals to this, factory method equals to get stage. it will go to the stage class. There is a factory method called as get stage. It will say what is the status of stage now, whether stage is null or it is pointing to something.
Pointing.
It is pointing to something. So now it will, what it will do, it will say stage is not equals to null. It will directly point the same stage object again. Understood now?
Yes, sir.
So that is a factory design pattern where you say, I want to create only one object of my class. So you will write the code like this. And again, this variable should be static. This is very important because it's a class level variable. All the objects can share it. So that's why this should be marked as static. The method should also be a static. That is the definition of a factory method. Okay. So here, when it comes to dependency injection, you can see it is a process. Define the dependencies through constructor arguments, through an argument to a factory method, or through a properties. Okay. So that is what it is. A factory method. We have seen constructor. We have seen property. So these are the three ways how you can inject an object. Okay. Now you can. So this. So you can always read this, okay, the Spring documentation part, how to instantiate a container, all those things we have covered. Configuration, metadata. See, the diagram which I showed on the first day also comes from this only Spring framework. It is not I created it. It is from the Spring framework only. That is a configuration, metadata. That is the XML file. Okay. So you can see all those things. Dependency injection. Okay. So this is about how to create the objects via constructor, how to give the dependency via constructor, via property, or via a factory method. Okay, and Spring and Runtime will create this objects for us. We don't create this object. Okay, so this is just a simple program. Just an introduction to Spring Beans. What is Spring container? What is dependency injection? What is inversion of control? Now what we will do is, we'll take a 15 minutes break, 10 to 15 minutes of break, and then we'll create a small project where we will see actually how the association or has a relationship between objects work on. Okay, so we'll create a small project, and you have to remember that this project is a base till we learn Spring dependency injection and aspect oriented programming features also. Okay, so we'll take a short break of 10-15 minutes. We'll be back at 10:40. Okay, and then we'll continue with the another project of training project where we will see how the objects are dependent on each other, how the object hierarchy happens. So before we take a break, any questions for me or any doubts? No, right? So what we'll do, we'll take a break and we'll be back at 10:41. Okay, thank you.
No, sir.
Hello. Now can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. I'll start with my screen share, guys. Okay, so what we are going to learn is about to actually understand how one object is dependent on another object in real life use case. Okay, so we are going to start a small project, create a small project, and then we'll configure it. Okay, so we are going to conduct a workshop. Okay, so what we are going to conduct a workshop. So you must be knowing about workshop, right? There are so many workshops which happens where people demo like what they have done, or they also teach someone, right, in the workshop. Like for example, there can be a drawing workshop, there can be a painting workshop, there can be a training workshop, there can be automobile workshop. Okay, so this can be different types of workshop. So workshop is a place where people demo their products and also they teach the people. So which workshop we are interested in? It's a training workshop. Okay, so what we are interested in is a training workshop. Okay, so now when you talk about a training workshop, so what you will require for that workshop to conduct a workshop, to conduct training, like whom do you require? You require someone called as a training company to come. Like for example, if we are going to conduct our training workshop, so who do we require to conduct the training? We require a training company to conduct a training workshop for us. Okay, so now can we see the training workshop is dependent on a training company, because the workshop cannot come and teach. The training company should have to come and they have to teach you. So what we can draw a conclusion from over here is the training workshop requires a training company. So what can be a training company? Can MET Solutions be a training company? MET is a training company, right? Like we also give you training, right? MET, correct? Now the MET Solutions is a building, right? Can a building train you? They require a trainer for training. So now can you see the MET Solution is dependent on what? They are dependent on a trainer. So the training company like MET Solutions, they are again dependent on a trainer to conduct training. So we can say over here is this training workshop is dependent on a training company to conduct a workshop or conduct training. And training company is internally dependent on what? They are dependent on a trainer for training purpose. Clear, guys? So this is how the dependency hierarchy is there in your real world project. One class is dependent on another class, and that class is dependent on another class or an interface. So here the training workshop is dependent on a training company, and training company internally is dependent on what? Trainer for doing a training. Okay, so training workshop, for conducting a workshop, what they need? they require a training company. Now, training company for teaching what they require trainers for training the students. Okay. Any doubt in this understanding? What we are trying to do, we are trying to learn the dependency hierarchy or the dependency between training workshop and the training company and the trainer. Okay, so we'll see that by using Spring. Okay, so initially what we'll do, we'll create our classes, okay, and interfaces for this using our normal Java coding. Okay, core Java part, like we'll create a training workshop, we'll create a training company, we'll create MET solutions, trainer, etc. Okay, so now how we will start is we'll create an interface called as trainer. Okay, and inside trainer, which method we'll have? We have public void train method. Okay, we'll have public void train method. So we'll have a train method. Now this trainer will be implemented by a class Java trainer implements trainer. Okay, and it will override this public void train method. Okay, so we'll write the code later on. Okay, now trainer is required by whom? It is required by a training company. So in training company we'll have interface training company, and here we'll have a method public void conduct training. Okay, and then we have a class MET solution implements training company, and then we'll have which method I should write inside this? It is implementing training company. So which is that method, guys?
Conduct training.
Yeah. You have to write conduct training. Okay. And then what we said, MET solutions is dependent on what? Which class, guys? MET solution is dependent on training.
Trainer of training.
So now what we need to do, inside MET solutions, we have to write private trainer. Got it, guys? Because MET solution is dependent on a trainer. And for conduct training, what they will do, they will tell a trainer to train. Okay, so that is how it is happening. So this MET solution is dependent on a trainer to conduct a training. So that's why I'm saying trainer.train means train the trainer. Please start your training over here. Okay, now which is the next interface? Training workshop. Okay, interface training workshop, and here we'll write public void conduct workshop. Okay, and then I will write not I'll write this is workshop only interface, and we are looking out for a training workshop implement workshop. Okay, and here we'll write the method implement this particular method. Okay, conduct workshop. Now training workshop is dependent on whom, guys? For conducting workshop, training company is dependent on what? Training workshop is dependent on training company, correct? Company, training company, and we'll write training. Okay, here what we will do, we'll just write for conduct workshop, we'll just write training company dot conduct training. So here, what is happening? Training workshop is depending on a training company, and training company like MET Solution is dependent on a trainer. So this is how the dependency hierarchy happens. So whenever we say public void conduct workshop, what it will do? It will tell the training company to conduct training and conduct training internally. Training company like MET Solutions, what they say? They say trainer to train. So this is how the dependencies are there. Workshop is dependent on training company, and training company is dependent on a trainer to train. Okay, guys. So this is how in your real life the dependency between two different or one more than one Java objects are there. Like training workshop is dependent on a training company, and training company is dependent on a trainer for conducting the training. Okay. So what we will do is we will first write this entire code, and then I will show you what is the issue if we write in normal Java coding, and then we will see how we can overcome that by using Spring technologies. Okay, by using Spring Beans, how we can solve it by using our dependency injection feature. Okay. So I'll create a new project. So I'll just copy paste this project. Okay. And I'll give the test as training test. I'll remove all the classes. I don't want this. I'll go to the resource. I'm not doing anything. I'm just cleaning up everything. Okay, whatever code we have written, I've created a backup. See, there is a backup also. Okay. Okay. So first, what we will do, we'll create an interface called as trainer. Okay. So here we'll write what is the method we need to give to the trainer, guys? Public void train, right? Clear? And then what we'll do, we create a class called as Java trainer. Okay. And I will add an interface. It will implement which interface? It will implement this trainer interface. Okay. Click on. So here, this Java trainer will have two instance variable, private string name, the name of the Java trainer, and private list of subjects he is going to teach. Okay. The subjects on which the trainer is going to teach. Okay. The Java trainer is going to teach which all subjects. Fine. And then we'll have a private constructor. Sorry, we have a default constructor and we have a parameterized constructor. Okay. Fine. So we have created a Java trainer, the parameterized constructor, and this. Okay. Now here I will write this out default Java trainer instance created. Okay. Here I will write this out parameterized Java trainer instance created. Okay. So right Java trainer instance created. This is done. Right click source, generate getters and setters. I'll select both of them and I'll click on OK. Fine. And here I will write in the train method. What I will do is I'll just write this out. I'll say the name of the class colon. Okay. and then I will say the training part. I will write name plus is teaching on Java subject plus this is the like the trainer name is teaching on Java subject and the list of subjects. And then we have a toString, and I'll write is a Java. Okay, we'll write name is a Java trainer. In the train method, we'll write name is teaching on Java subject, and these are the getters and setters. And this is the parameterized constructor. This is the default constructor. Okay, so I've written parameterized Java trainer instance invoked and default Java trainer instance invoked. We have the getters and setters, and then in the train method we have written the name of the class and the method name. And here I am writing name is teaching on Java subject, and in the toString we have written name is a Java trainer. Okay, this name and the subject are the instance variable of this Java trainer. Okay, so any doubts, any questions you are having for this particular thing? Understood this class? These are simple Java object-oriented programming classes. Okay, nothing related to Spring I have added yet. Then which next class we need to add? Interface we need to add? We need to add a training component. In the training company we have conduct training. Okay, and then we'll write right click new class MET solutions, and in the interfaces we'll write training company. Now MET solutions, the training company is dependent on what, guys? It is dependent on trainer. So I'll write that. Okay, and the conduct training will come that later on. And then here again I'll write the default constructor and a parameterized constructor. Okay, we'll write all those things first. Parameterize MET trainer instance invoked. I'll just copy this, and here I will write parameterize. No, it is default MET solutions invoked, and this is a parameterized MET solutions. Okay. Then we have a get trainer, set trainer, and in the conduct training we'll write in the conduct trainer we'll write sys out the name of the class and we'll write the conduct training. And then we'll who is having the business logic of conduct training? The trainer is knowing how to, because MET solutions is dependent on a trainer to conduct training. So whenever we are saying conduct training, so what this will say? It will just say trainer dot train. So this will call the trainer and the trainer will start training because MET Solutions is dependent on a trainer for conducting a training. Okay, guys. Here I'll write MET Solutions is a training company. Okay, fine. So this is all we have written. This is again a simple class, nothing related to Spring. Any questions here, guys? You can ask me. I just wait for a minute. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer it. I will just wait for a minute, and if you have any questions, you can ask me. You got it, guys? The simple object-oriented programming of creating classes, right? Nothing dependent on. Are you guys getting it, right?
Sir, can you explain from where what is inheriting? Too much fast was that.
Okay. See, it is something like this. See. We are saying we are going to conduct a workshop, right? Okay. So we are interested in which workshop? We are interested in a training workshop. Okay. But actually, like whenever a workshop is conducted, right? We are interested in a training workshop. So for conducting a training workshop, what we require? We require a training company to conduct a training. So that's why we are saying training workshop requires a training company for conducting a training. Okay. But now what is a training company? We can say MET Solutions is a training company. Okay. So when we say MET Solutions is a training company, now what is MET Solution? It's a building, it's a corporate, right? Can a building come and train you, or you require trainers for training?
Trainer.
We require a trainer for training purpose. So that's why we say like MET Solutions is dependent on a trainer for training. Similarly, training workshop is dependent on a training company for conducting a training. Understood the relationship? What is there? There is no inheritance. It's all a has a relationship or a composition. Training workshop has a training company. Training company has a trainer. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is dependency. Like training company is dependent on a MET solution. Sorry, training workshop is dependent on a training company, and training company is dependent on a trainer. Okay, so that is what we have done. We have created an interface called as a trainer, which will have a public void train method. Okay, and then I have written a class Java trainer, which is implementing that trainer. So I will override the train method. Till now clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you look at this code, that is it. I have created a trainer interface. Okay, which is having a train method, and then I created a Java trainer class where I have overridden the train method. Okay, and then this Java trainer is having two instance variable, names and subjects. Okay, just look at this class, and if you have any questions, you can ask me. Just look at the Java trainer. See this. Any doubt in this? You can just ask me, no problem.
No, sir.
Clear? This is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is a simple Java trainer class by using object-oriented programming, nothing related to Spring. And then what I showed you, training company, which is having a method called as a conduct training. Okay, so what we did, we created a class called as MET Solutions, which will implement that training company. Okay, then we will write, since why we are saying that training company is dependent on training on a trainer, because as I said, right, MET Solutions is a building and building cannot train. So they require trainers to conduct a training. So that's why you will see in MET Solutions, we require a trainer, because MET Solution is dependent on what? they are dependent on a trainer for training purpose. So that's why MET solution has a trainer. Understood now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can look at it. I have a training company which is having a method called as conduct training. And then we have a MET solutions which says MET solution implements training company, and we are having a trainer because MET solution is dependent on a trainer for training purpose. So then rest everything is a default constructor. We have a parameterized constructor for a trainer. We have a getter, setter, property, and then we have a conduct training method in which we are saying trainer dot train because the building is like which class is this MET solution? So MET solutions cannot train. They require a trainer for training purpose. And then we have a toString method saying that MET solutions is a training company. Okay, any doubt now?
No, sir.
Fine. Others, any questions? See, whenever you don't speak up, we consider silence as yes. Okay, if you have questions, you can ask me or you can just say no. Okay, sometimes. So it is better for me to understand. Like sometimes, for us considering silence as yes, there's a problem. If you understand, you don't say yes, or if you don't understand anything, then also you keep silent. So then it is very difficult for me to understand whether you have you got that functionality or not. Okay.
Sir, that
Yeah.
conduct training method is written in trainer. What?
No, it is not returning anything. It is just saying trainer.train means trainer start your training.
There was overridden.
Yeah, because that's an override and because we are implementing an interface, right? Training company. MET solutions implements a training company. So whenever you implement a training company, you have to override its method, right? For an interface.
Yes, got it.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Clear. And then we have the MET solutions, we have the Java trainer. Now what we have to create now is which classes? We have to create a training workshop and its interface. Okay. Interface called as workshop. In this, I'll write the public void conduct workshop. And then I'll write a class training workshop add workshop. Okay. Fine. So since I'm implementing a workshop interface and it is having a conduct workshop, there is an @ override of the conduct workshop. This is object-oriented programming. Now training workshop is dependent on what, guys? For conduct training
Training
workshop, it
Trainer.
is dependent on a training company, right? Correct?
Yes, sir.
They are dependent on a training company. And then as always, we'll write a default constructor, we'll write parameterized constructors and a getter setter method. Okay. Generate getters and setters. Okay. Right. So here I'll write this out. Parameterized training workshop instance group. And here I will write parameterized training workshop. This default training workshop instance invoke. So we have a training workshop without any arguments, with any argument, get training company, set training company, and in we have a conduct workshop. Okay. In the conduct workshop, I'll write this out. Training workshop. Conduct workshop. And then here what I will write says training company, training workshop is dependent on a training company for conducting a workshop. I'll write the training company dot conduct training. So here conduct workshop will tell, hey, a training company, you conduct a workshop or you conduct a training for us. Okay. Now what MET solutions, if we talk about MET solutions and conduct training, it is dependent on what? It is dependent on a trainer to train. So this is how, the dependency is there. The workshop is the dependent, workshop is dependent on a training company and training company is dependent on a trainer. So this is how the relationship is, or the has a relationship is there, or we say the objects are dependent on each other. Okay, training workshop is dependent on a training company is dependent on a trainer. Okay, so you will see whenever you invoke a conduct workshop method, what will happen? It will invoke the MET solutions conduct training. Now MET solutions conduct training will automatically trigger a train method. Okay, so any doubt, you'll just look at this training workshop code, and then you can just ask me. So that is why whenever you learn or you are learning Spring, it is very important that you should also practice. Okay, because this is very important, because when I write such kind of things, you should be able to practice it. Okay, so then only you will understand the concept, because what happens is whenever I am teaching Spring and you are along with me, you will understand that you are learning Spring. But the moment you are depend, like I am not there, I'm not teaching or something, I'm not available at that time, you're trying to learn Spring. At that time you will find, okay, so there are so much confusions. Why? Because Spring is a framework and framework does lot of configuration things. Okay, so since it is it is not simple, that is why in the industry there is a requirement of Spring developers, and that's why we are paid for, right guys? So why you would be paid for a single job, for a simple job? It is not like that. Okay, because we have, you know one thing is software engineers, they have to think a lot whenever they code. Okay, so that's why we have paid for, like for example, if in your work renovation work is going on, house renovation work is going on, so the person, the who are working, the mason, they do a lot of things, they do most of, like the hard work is done by them, but they are paid less than us. Why? Because our job is mostly to think on someone. We are not doing any hard work, there is no physical work, but we have a mental work. Okay, we have to think mentally. So that's what we are paid for. How good you think, how good you design a software, in that way your career will shape up. Okay, so if you have to see that in the software engineering field, right, whenever you're into software development, there is always a graph of learning. You will not say, okay, अब बस मैंने बहुत पढ़ लिया in software engineering. If you think like that, अब मैंने बहुत पढ़ लिया, then in the next 5 years you will be jobless. Why? Because IT industry is there is a big evolution. Every year there is a change. Every year you will find, okay, there is something new. Okay, if the Angular JS was new, then immediately React JS came into picture. This is how the technology is shaping up. There was nothing much on cloud initially. Now everything is going on cloud. There is AWS, there is an Azure, there are so many things. So you have to keep on learning. There are Kubernetes, you will learn that. So these are all big things coming into market, and you have to learn. If you want to earn, you have to learn. That is what I can say in a nutshell, right? If you don't want to learn, if you don't want to earn, don't learn. So the learn and earn goes hand in hand. If you learn, you will earn. Okay, so this is very important, because Spring is very important framework, because whenever you go to industry, 90% of the time, if you're going for a Java developer interview, they will expect you to understand Spring. Okay, So how much I'm covering, if you practice that much is going into your head. 70, 80%, 90% is going into your head. That is more than enough. Okay. But you have to learn Spring as if you are a Spring container. How you will think if you are a Spring container, in that way you have to learn. Okay. So for me also to understand Spring, right, it took time. It is not Spring and its framework you can understand, within 1 or 2 weeks or something. It takes months to understand it. But whenever I teach you, most of the things I try to make it simple, and I try to teach in such a way that it will go inside your brain directly. Okay, so that's why I ask you, if you understand, then tell me so I can proceed ahead. So that I wanted to teach you so that it goes directly into your brain and you can recollect it whenever you are in your exams or in your interviews. Okay, so yeah. So the only bottom line I wanted to make is you have to learn Spring. Okay, you have to practice Spring a lot. Okay, so any doubt in this program till now? Any questions? You didn't understand what is the relation between a workshop, between a training workshop versus a training company and trainer. So you understand the relationship, right? Because training workshop is dependent on a training company to conduct the training, and for a training company, right, like MET Solutions, to do a training, they are dependent on a trainer, because MET Solution is just a building. A building cannot train anyone. They require trainers for training purposes. Okay. Yeah, fine. So now we'll see, I'll write a test program, right, in such a way that there is no Spring. The first thing what I'm going to teach is, assuming that there is no Spring, how we could have written this program in core Java. Okay, and then we will see how it is possible, like by using Spring framework, we are doing loose coupling over here. Okay. So in the non-Spring test, I'll write a class non-Spring test class. Okay. I'll write a main method. Okay. So first, which object I'm going to create? I'm going to create an object of Java trainer. Okay. So for creating a Java trainer, if you are a Java developer, what you need a name and a list of string of subjects. So we'll write that. We'll write something like this. So I'll create this Java trainer by calling this this parameterized constructor. I'll pass a name and I will need to pass the list of string of subjects. So what I will do is I'll first create that list of string subjects equals to new array list of size 3. I want to store only 3 objects into this subjects dot add. It's a core Java or anything we'll write. We'll write JSP. JDBC. Collections. Okay. And then I will write trainer Java trainer equals to new Java trainer, and then I'll write the name as Ajay. Okay, and I will pass this as subjects, a list of subjects. Correct, guys? This is how you create the object, right? We as a Java developer creates this object, and this is called by using a parameterized constructor. Okay. Now the trainer is over. Now I will create a MET Solutions object. Okay. So now what I will do is I'll use a property thing, MET solutions equals to new MET solutions, and I'll write MET solutions dot set trainer, and I'll pass this Java trainer. Okay. Then I will write workshop training workshop equals to new training workshop, and I'll pass this MET solutions. And then what I will do is I'll just say training workshop dot conduct workshop. So what I'm doing is I'm calling training workshop dot conduct workshop. Now you know this workshop, right? It is dependent on what? It is depending on a training component for conducting a training. So what it will do? It will call the conduct workshop. Okay. The training workshop will go to the conduct workshop method. Here, what is the training company? It is the MET solutions, and it will call MET solutions dot conduct training. Now this MET solutions dot conduct training, it will print this line, and then it will say trainer dot train. Now what is a trainer? It is a Java trainer, and it will say Java trainer dot train method. It will print this first, and then it will say name is teaching on Java, subject OOPS, JDBC, and collection. Okay, so we'll run this program and we'll see that output. Can you see this? Parameterize Java trainer object created, invoke MET solutions, parameterize the training workshop, and then we'll call the training workshop dot conduct workshop. It is internally calling MET solutions conduct training, and this is internally calling Java trainer dot train, and then it is saying Ajay is teaching on Java subject. Okay. So any doubt on this main program? Any questions? This is simple object-oriented programming I have written. Any doubt, guys? In the output created, any question, doubt in this test program? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, it is like it is printing me the proper things, right? You will see from the training workshop, it is printing training workshop and the name of the method. It is printing the training MET solutions and the name of the function, and Java trainer, it is saying class name and the train method. So this is how it is going. Like we call that conduct workshop internally calls training workshops under training, and this internally calls a Java trainer train method, and this is the it's like it is saying Ajay is teaching on Java subjects. Okay, so far so good. Okay, but what if in the training, this Ajay Java trainer, right? He's the only
Sir, muted.
sorry. Sorry, I got a call. Okay, so I was saying like this you can hear me, right, guys?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So here I was saying that this MET solutions, the training workshop was very happy because the Ajay trainer did taught perfectly on core Java. Like Ajay is a person, he's a core Java trainer, and he gave wonderful session on this thing in the workshop. Now this training workshop, right? The persons who are conducting this training workshop, they were quite impressed with the MET solutions, and then they told, "Hey, MET solutions, you have a very wonderful tutor called as an Ajay, who did quite well in core Java thing." Now, what the training company said, the training workshop people say, similarly, we want a training on what? Advanced Java. Now, what is the problem? Ajay trainer, he don't know how to teach advanced Java. So now what MET solutions have to do? They have to look out for a new trainer, okay, who is going to teach on advanced Java subjects. Okay, but now your code, right? The code, whatever you have written in the test program, what is the problem with this code? Can anyone tell me? What is the problem with this code? This code is tightly coupled to core Java trainer. Can you see that, guys? This code is tightly coupled to the core Java trainer. Why? Because if I want to add an advanced Java trainer, what steps I need to do? I need to delete this, and I need to create a new trainer object over here saying that this is a trainer called as an Vijay who is going to teach you advanced Java concepts. So currently your code, we can say it is tightly coupled to what? It is tightly coupled to core Java trainer. Now, if you want to be, flexible for, if you want to copy paste this entire code and create a new code. So that means you're going to change a source code for achieving that. Okay. So what I have to do as a Java developer, a core Java developer, this,
Loose coupling.
sorry?
Loose coupling through
Yeah.
dependency.
Yes.
Dependency in this.
Yes. So if you're a core Java developer, what you will do, you'll create this, you will say JSP, servlets, and here I'll write RMI, and instead of Vijay, we'll write Ajay will write Vijay. And now when I will run this program, now you will see, okay, Vijay is teaching on Java subject. But what is the problem? Your Java code is now tightly coupled to, advanced Java trainer. Now, if you want core Java, again, you have to make the source code changes and something. Okay. So now we will see how this problem is.
Sorry, you are again muted.
Now we can see, how to solve. Now we can see how we can solve this problem by using a Spring Beans. We write the Spring Beans configuration inside an XML file, and runtime we have to just change the reference of the bean, and we don't have to change the source code. That is what we have seen for the address, right? Address and employee. You can create multiple beans of addresses in your configuration file, and you can refer one bean at a time into the employee object. Clear, guys? Any doubt in
Yes,
this?
sir.
Okay,
No, sir.
fine. So we'll see that configuration. I'll create that XML file. Just give me a minute. I have. Okay, let us see how we can configure that into an Excel. Okay, so can anyone tell me how to create this? Bean, I'll write ID equals to Java trainer 1, class equals to this. And then what we did over here, we call the parameterize constructor. So how we can do that calling of a parameterize constructor over here? We can pass by saying constructor hyphen args, name equals to the name of the argument, and value equals to this. Okay. So for the Java trainer, we'll see the name first, and the value is Ajay. Okay. Now, what is the second argument? Name equals to subjects. Okay. Now the subject, okay, what we are having is, it is not a single subject. What we have, a list of subjects. Okay. So now I will show how to configure this. Okay. So we have to write list, and inside the list we can write value And here we'll write, oops, JDBC collection. Okay, fine. So we have created one single bean, and what we will do is we'll go to our Spring test and write a class called as a training test. Okay, so in this training test, what we will do, we'll create a Spring container. Okay, what we will do is we'll create a Spring container. So how we create a Spring container, guys? In Spring framework, what is a Spring container? Can anyone tell me? How we represent a Spring container?
Application
Application
context.
context.
We write application context equals to new class path XML application context, and here you can give this XML file. So what is this XML file? We have a test.xml file. I'll change it to, I'll give a different name, training.xml file. Okay, I've changed the name of that file. Okay, so here I will write training.xml file. Okay, and then whenever we load this training.xml file, what will happen, guys? If you are a Spring container, what you will do? What you will do if you're a Spring container? What you will do first?
Bean with singleton scope.
Yeah, so it will first find beans with scope equals to singleton. Is Java trainer bean a singleton bean? Yes, correct, guys. So what it will do, it will create this particular bean by calling a parameterized constructor. So if I write like this only, right? If I run this program, this training test, you will see that. To this parameterized Java trainer invoked. Why? Because we are given the constructor hyphen arg. Constructor hyphen arg means it will go to your parameterized constructor and it will initialize this. Clear? So now you will see once this training.xml it is loaded, right? Your object is getting created. Now, if you want a reference of that object, right? You can just say get bean. You can write like this also. Okay. What is the bean name? We'll write like this. And then you will just say trainer dot class. Okay. So I'm telling the Spring container, hey, give me that particular class. So you will just write this out, Java trainer. Okay. And if you want, you can also call a method, Java trainer dot train method. Okay. So I'm printing the Java trainer and then I'm saying Java trainer dot train method. So you can see this. And you see the object is getting created. Then we are saying print the bean object. So it is saying Ajay is a Java trainer. And then when I'm saying Java trainer dot train, it will first print the function name and the function. And then it is saying Ajay is teaching on Java. Okay. So this is what it is happening. Like once you get the bean, you can just call that method. Okay. Clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let us design the next bean. So what is the next bean from the non-Spring test? It is a Mikado, it is a MET solutions, and then you're calling it set trainer. Okay, so what it is this? It is via a property. This is what code you write for a property, right? Setting via property. So here I will write in the training.xml bean ID equals to MET solution class equals to MET solution, and then we'll set property. The property name is, it is a trainer. So we'll write name equals to trainer, and this is what, can I write a value or the trainer is a reference type? What type it is? Trainer is a primitive type or a reference type?
Reference
The
type.
reference type. So I will write refer equals to this trainer. Okay. So this is what a dependency injection, wherein we are specifying the MET solution bean is dependent on a Java trainer one bean, and at runtime, Spring will create the MET solutions. It will create the Java trainer bean, and this will inject the Java trainer bean into the MET solutions. Okay. Okay, so we'll write bean ID equals to MET solution. So here we are saying the dependency injection, and at runtime it will happen. So now you will see post initialization of the Spring container. You have written Java trainer 1, and this is the trainer dot. Okay. So now what we have done, we have created another bean called as MET solution. So we can also get that. Okay. Right. Context dot get bean. This is a bean ID, and this is the training company dot class. Okay. Okay, and then I'll say sysout sysout training company, and I'll say training company dot conduct training. Okay, so here I will write so here I'm taking a bean called as MET solutions. Okay. So now if I run this program, you will say MET solutions is a training company. And then when I'm saying MET solutions dot conduct training, what it is happening, it will first print MET solutions dot conduct training. And since MET solution is dependent on a Java trainer for training purpose, it will invoke the conduct training. Okay, it will say, see MET solution, what it says, it will say trainer dot train. So which trainer it is? It is a Java trainer dot train method, and then it will come to train method of Java trainer, and it will print, okay, Java trainer colon int, and you will see name is teaching on Java subject. See this. Ajay is teaching on Java subjects. Now, if tomorrow, currently you are having a Java trainer 1 and Java trainer, if you want to change it, right, what you want, if you don't want this, what you will do is just comment this out, create a Java trainer 2 over here, and just change the references. We can just write Ajay, oh, sorry, we write over here as Vijay, subject should be JSP, Savlej, and RMI. RMI. Now, if I run this program, we'll see. Okay, fine. So the thing is, we have written over here a Java trainer 2, and here in the code, right, we have written Java trainer 1. So that's why this is not working. That is fine. But if you look at this, MET solutions, if you look at the MET solutions, automatically it has taken the another bean, like the dependent bean as Vijay. Okay, so you can see MET solutions is a training company. Now you will see Vijay is training on the Java subjects. So you can just change the configuration over here, and automatically this will work. Okay, so you don't have to worry, because that is the advantage of using Spring framework, right? At runtime, Spring container will give the dependent object. Spring container will write the Java code. So that bean, and at runtime, Spring Bean will be created for you. Okay. Now the last configuration is pending, that is of the training workshop. It's of the training workshop. Okay. So how we will write that configuration? Bean ID equals to training workshop class equals to, for the training workshop we will take this class, copy qualified name, class equals to this. Okay. Then how I created that? It was created, the training workshop was created via a parameterized constructor. So I'll give that constructor hyphen arg name equals to this. What it is? Training workshop. What is the name of the argument? It is training company. And then I will give reference of the training company. What is the reference? It is referring to MET solutions. Okay, it is referring to the MET solutions beam. Okay, now if you go to your training test and you say workshop equals to context dot get bean, and then you write workshop dot class. Okay. Workshop dot class, and then you just say workshop dot conduct workshop. Okay. I'll just comment out the previous statement, all the statements, whatever we have printed. So now we'll just focus on this workshop dot conduct workshop. So now what will happen? This, right? This training workshop is having a reference to this MET solutions. Okay. Now what we are doing is we are just saying workshop dot conduct workshop. So what will happen? It will call this conduct workshop. Conduct workshop is internally calling a training company, which is an MET solutions conduct training. And if you look at this MET solutions conduct training, what is happening? It is internally calling the trainer.train method. So now if you run this program, you will see automatically the training workshop conduct workshop method is called. It is internally calling whom? It is calling MET solutions conduct training, and MET solutions is internally calling a Java trainer. Why? Because training workshop is dependent on a training company, and training company is dependent on a Java trainer to train. So that is how we define the dependencies in this XML file. Like this is dependent on this, like MET solution is dependent on this Java trainer 2 for training, and this training company is dependent on this training company MET solutions for training. So we are defining the dependency via constructor. We are defining a dependency via a property. Okay, and we have also seen factory hyphen method. Okay, so now if tomorrow MET solution says, hey, I don't want to work with this company now. So what will training workshop has to do? They have to look for another MET. They don't have to look for MET solutions. They have to look for some another training solutions, and it can also happen at runtime. You have to just change this. Okay, so that is the advantage of using Spring Bean. Basically, everything happens at runtime. You have to just change the configuration file. You don't have to change the source code. So that is the advantage of using Spring Bean. That is a loose coupling, which is achieved using dependency injection or inversion of control. That you have to remember. Okay, guys. So this is just a small project. Okay, we need to build more things into this, but we will do that in the next lecture. But what I want from you is you have to practice this entire small project, whatever I have created till now, so that whenever we start with the next lecture, right, we are going to build a base on top of it. Everything will be working on top of it. Okay, what are the concepts you are going to understand? Everything is built on top of it. So I will request you guys to practice it And then when we meet for the next session, we'll be building an we'll further continue with the another concept of Spring framework. Okay, guys.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Any doubts before I wrap up for the day? I hope you understood loose coupling, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, can you send a zip file of this code?
Yeah, I definitely will send it. Yes.
Sir, can you share in chatbot?
Okay, you want in chat box?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, I'll send it. Not a problem. Fine, I'll stop sharing and then I'll send it. Okay, I had stopped sharing or what? No, I'll stop the sharing. Okay.